Everyone will tell you that it takes two people to save a marriage. They're wrong. When a marriage is on the brink of divorce, it only takes one person to turn the ship around. But it all hinges on one critical thing, which is your spouse has to see, believe, and trust that you've genuinely changed. If they don't, it's for one of four reasons, and by the end of this video, you'll know what they are. I'm Josh Fuller, co-founder of Marriage Mavericks. That statement I just made that one person can save a marriage, it isn't a hopeful theory. It's a reality that my wife Cassie and I have spent over 18 years and hundreds of clients proving. So we specialize in helping one committed person save their marriages when they're the only ones fighting for it. And just to give you an idea of the kind of situations we deal with, when people come to us, pretty much everybody's spouse wants a divorce. 58% of the time, their spouse is having an affair. 53% of the time, they're living in separate homes. And 27% of the time, divorce papers have already been filed. So when I say that it takes one person, I'm starting about talking from the absolute brink and then turning it all around. And the question that we're tackling today here is the key to doing that. So what's the problem that you're facing? Right now, your marriage is on that brink. Maybe you've been fighting for years. Maybe you're feeling like roommates. Maybe there's been a major betrayal, like an affair. Or alternatively, maybe you didn't realize that things were poorly. Maybe you actually thought things were okay or even good, and your spouse just dropped this bombshell where they're telling you that they've been unhappy for years and you're feeling totally blindsided. Either way, the alarm bells are ringing because they said that they're done, they're checked out. Maybe they said that they love you, but they're not in love with you. And you've responded. You've started to change. You're trying as hard as you can. And you might have been working on these changes for months or even years, and you probably feel like you've made a lot of progress. But all you're getting back is a wall of skepticism. I don't see the changes. I don't trust the changes. I don't care that you've changed. This is just a front that you're putting on. Why did you wait until I was walking out the door? Getting your spouse to believe your changes are real is the master key that unlocks a second chance. So think about this for a minute. If you could consistently show up as the happy, confident, loving, supportive partner that they've always wanted, add whatever other qualities in there that is the person you want to be, that your spouse has been asking you for, and then you show that to your spouse in a way where they saw it and believed it and trusted the change was going to stick, how different do you think your marriage would be? It would be drastically different. It wouldn't be completely fixed, but this is how one person saves a marriage, because you do need two people to get a marriage to a 10 out of 10. That's where that myth of needing two people comes from. Obviously, you're not going to be in a spot where you're going on great dates and having amazing intimacy by yourself. But that's not the first step. You don't need them to work on it with you to get from a 1 out of 10, where they're looking at divorce, to like a 5 out of 10, where it's stable and it's hopeful. What you need to get to a 5 out of 10 is a point where they see you and they trust the new you, and now they believe that if they put in the effort, they're going to get something back out of it, that things might actually be different this time. That's what makes them willing to put in the effort to get the marriage to a 10 out of 10 together. So let's break down the 4 reasons they don't believe you yet and what you need to do about it. All right, reason number 1 is you're changing the wrong things. This might be the most frustrating reason of all, because you might be putting in a huge amount of effort and making a lot of changes, but you're working on the wrong problem. So when our marriage is in crisis, we look in the mirror and we go, man, I've been messing up. I haven't been showing up the way that I need to. And we start a self-improvement project. The problem is we often choose to fix the things that we think are important or the things that society tells us to fix instead of the things that actually drove our spouse away. And I find that this can happen to anyone, but I feel like it's especially common for men because there's so many messages you're bombarded with, especially when it comes to your marriage, about what a real man and a real husband should be. So you might decide the problem is your confidence, or you weren't a good enough provider, or 100 other things. So you start hitting the gym, you start crushing it at work, and even spending more time with your family. I talk to a lot of people who are like, I'm spending time at home now. I'm making my family a priority. Those are all good things. But what if the real issue that drove your spouse away wasn't any of that? What if the thing that made them feel alone for the last decade was that you never took their side in a conflict with your family? What if they just wanted to feel like you were on the same team together? You're over here building a fortress, but they just wanted you to stand with them in the garden. And your change, however positive, it completely misses what they need the most. Now, these are just examples. And as I said, those examples were a little more lean towards men. But the fact that they are examples is kind of the point of what I'm saying here. What your spouse needs in general and what they need from you specifically is different for every person in every marriage. And if you don't know, you can't fix it. So how do you fix this problem? You have to become a detective. You're not going to get this from reading books or listening to podcasts or doing a self-improvement course. There's really only one person on the planet who knows what changes will truly matter. That's your spouse. To get that information, you have to fix the communication breakdown between you two. You need to learn to ask the right questions in a way that makes them feel safe enough to finally tell you the truth. And this doesn't happen all at once. In our program, we teach what we call the 5 levels of marital communication, where you go from the maybe more business conversations that you're having day to day, and you work your way up to the point where you're talking about the things you really want to talk about, the marriage, which is the 5th level. It's all the way up here. You can't just ask for this information directly when there's no trust. And you may have tried. You may have been in a spot where you've asked your spouse what needs to be different, and they tell you they don't know, or they haven't answered you at all, or they've given you an answer that's unhelpful. It's because the trust, the safety isn't there for them to give you an honest answer. You have to earn your way up level by level to get to the conversations that can actually save your marriage. Reason number 2, you haven't changed enough. So maybe you're changing the right things or some of the right things, but you haven't changed them enough. This is a tough pill to swallow, but most of us are terrible judges of our own progress. The negative patterns and the behaviors that led to the crisis that you're in right now, they weren't built in a day. They were built over years. And some of them were probably built over a lifetime. You can't reverse 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of behavior with a few weeks of effort. Trying to turn an aircraft carrier around, it's not a quick maneuver. It requires immense sustained power. Making real change in your marriage requires immense sustained effort. But it's not just that. It really requires 3 things that you can't get on your own. It requires the right tools. It requires a process, like a proven process, to change those things that you need to change. It does require a ton of hard work because there are no shortcuts, but it also requires outside accountability. You can't see the water from inside of the fishbowl. You need someone from outside of the fishbowl, outside of your patterns, your habits, outside of the relationship, to see what you can't and to hold you to a higher standard, to hold you accountable to becoming that person that you want to become and that that spouse deserves that you become. Number 3, you are communicating the changes ineffectively. This one trips up almost everyone. You can make all the right changes. You can even make enough changes. But if you talk about them in the wrong way, you completely sabotage your own efforts. It's kind of like if you're running a marathon, you make it all the way through and you trip yourself at the finish line. So the core principle here is that you've got to communicate with ownership instead of expectations. So let's break down the right way and the wrong way to be communicating your changes to your spouse. So the wrong way is communicating with expectations. A couple examples of this are the pleader, right? The person's like, look at me. Can't you see how much I've changed for you? Why aren't you acknowledging it? It sounds needy, but more than needy, it makes your change feel like it's not about real change. It's just a desperate tactic to try and get something back from your spouse. You've got the scorekeeper. All right, I've been reading the books. I've been working on myself. I've been making my changes. Maybe I've gone to therapy. I've done my part. Now, what are you going to do? But that just turns your change into a transaction. Again, it's not something you're doing because you should do, because you want to be a better person, because they deserve it. It's something you're doing to get something from them. Can you see why that wouldn't feel real to your spouse? And the third example of this that I see a lot is the defender. You changed yourself, but you're kind of minimizing what's happened and how you got here. So, I haven't yelled in 3 weeks, but you brought it up again. Nothing I do is ever good enough for you. Or alternatively, sometimes other people like, yeah, look, I know that for years I was really nasty when I communicated with you, but I've changed that. And that proves A, that the old you is just underneath the surface. But again, it also makes your spouse feel like you're really downplaying how you got here. Like you're downplaying your part in the problems and what you've done to them by not showing up as the person that you should be, how you've hurt them. And in their mind, if you don't really take seriously how you treated them before, why are things going to be any different now? So the right way here is to communicate with ownership. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of how you can do this, but the more important piece of this is the principle. Okay? It's being in a spot where they feel like the changes, because of how you're communicating, are something that you're doing for you, and that you're taking the harm that you caused really seriously, and you don't want to cause that pain again. So a couple of ways that you can do this is you can validate their reality, which is whenever you're talking about how you've changed, first, you really have to acknowledge their perspective. This is the most missed step. So saying things like, you're right, for years, I shut down when we argued, and it makes a lot of sense that you don't trust my words right now. Or maybe I understand why you're skeptical. I have a long history of not following through. You have to understand that validation, it's not agreement. It's acknowledging that their feelings are logical, and it lowers their defenses. The second piece is to just take radical ownership of your past behaviors. When you're talking about how you got here, and particularly when you're talking about the changes that you've made and why you've made the changes, you need to only speak about your own part. If you're to apologize, then you should say something like, I'm sorry for this specific action. It was wrong because here's why. In the future, I'm going to the specific plan for change, right? So I'm sorry for the action. It was wrong because here's a specific way that it hurt you. And in the future, here's a specific thing that I'm going to do differently. So an example of that would be, hey, I'm truly sorry for prioritizing my work over our family time. It was wrong. It sent the message that you weren't my top priority. It made you feel alone. But I'm structuring my days now where I'm going to be fully present. I'm going to be home. I'm going to be offline from 6 p.m. onward. You also want to frame the change as personal. You need to be putting in the space that this change is for you. It's because it's who you want to be. It's who you should be. This removes the pressure from them and it makes the change feel like it's something that's authentic, not transactional. And when it feels like it's authentic, then they feel like it's going to stick. So you can say things like, I'm doing this work because I'm not proud of the man or woman or partner that I was being. And I want to be a person who's patient and who's kind. This shows them that the change is not a temporary tactic to win them back, but it's a permanent upgrade to your character. And here's the key. For them to believe that the change is real, you have to maintain this level of ownership in every conversation about the past and the changes that you're making. And at the same time, you're probably talking about your changes too much. It is great to go to your spouse. Use some of those tools we just talked about. Apologize for what you've done to them specifically and how that's hurt them. Take ownership. Tell them what you're changing. Tell them that you're changing because you should be changing. Not that it's transactional, but because you want to be a better person. But at the end of the day, you're not going to convince them that you have changed by repeating that you've changed and how much you've changed to them over and over and over again. You are going to prove to them that you've changed by your actions. And that brings us to the fourth piece, which is lack of consistency across all conditions. Now, when people hear consistency, they usually think of time. And yes, you need to be consistent in that way. You need to show them that new you for more than just a few weeks. There is a factor of time there. But what's far more important is consistency under pressure. It's easy to be patient when things are going well. It's easy to be that new you. But what happens when you're having a disagreement or your spouse says something that's nasty or unfair, or they bring up how you got here, or you're stressed and you're tired and you fall into a situation where the old you would have snapped? These are the moments of truth. These are the tests. When you show up as the new, better version of yourself during a moment of tension or during a moment where before you would have done something different, then their brain registers it. That is a powerful piece of evidence. If you revert under pressure, then this new you is just a mask that you're putting on. When you can remain calm and respectful and loving consistently, especially when it's hard, then that's when the change becomes believable. That's when trust starts to rebuild. So let's recap the 4 reasons your spouse might not trust your changes. Number 1, you've changed the wrong things. You've changed the things that they don't care about or don't care about as much. Number 2, you haven't changed enough. You are underestimating the amount of work required to create the change that's needed. Number 3, you're communicating about the changes in a way that creates neediness and pressure. Number 4, you haven't been consistent, particularly when things get hard. And I'll tell you a secret, it's usually more than one of these things. Now, I know this can feel overwhelming, but I want you to see this as a roadmap, because for the first time, you might be seeing clearly why your efforts aren't working. So this isn't a dead end. It's a signpost showing you the right path forward. It's possible to get to a spot where your spouse does trust your changes and where you're in a place where they're now willing, because of that trust, to invest in the marriage again, to work with you to build something new and beautiful together. And you have more power to influence your marriage than you might think, or than it might seem from this place that you're in, where you feel like you've put in a bunch of effort and you're just not getting the belief back from your spouse that you want. You just need the right strategy. So if this resonated with you, the first thing I want you to do, like this video, subscribe so you don't miss our future content, and then in the comments below, let me know which of those 4 reasons hit home the most for you. Is it number 1? Is it number 2? Is it number 3? Is it number 4? Reading your comments helps us know what content to make next. So remember, you can do this. I'm Josh Fuller, and we'll see you in the next video.